Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're all still awake after lunch, as I was saying. So this morning I want to talk to you, or this afternoon actually, I want to talk to you a bit about sort of your brand vulnerabilities, but with the view of what the world sees when they look at your domain name. I want to start by actually asking you the question, do you know everything that is using your company domain?
No. We know.
So there is Shadow IT straight away. So who am I? I'm an Apple technical partner, Apple-focused MSP. Some of you will also know me for my penny farthing exploits. I'm an instructor at weekends of those. I have 2 Guinness World Records, and my latest adventures are in July I'm off to America to play for Team GB against Team USA in penny farthing polo. It's a good contrast to IT. But what does this all have to do with brand? Before I worked in IT, I worked in professional sport. And anyone who's worked for sports teams knows that brand is a very big thing. You know, they spend millions about how their brand is presented, protecting it, and maximizing what that brand comes into. So one of the things that over the last couple of years I've taken quite a lot of interest in is actually domain names. How companies' domain names appear. What does it tell the world? Most people, when they buy first thing they do when they set up a company will buy a domain name. It's just the done thing these days. They assume that domains are just about email and about websites, but actually, a domain name is a lot more in this day and age. It is very much a signpost. It tells the world about all your different services. It tells the world about all your APIs. It tells the world about where to go when they want to access some of the services you have. It tells your staff. It's part of our identities. So it's something that a lot of companies over the years have not paid enough attention, I think, in properly protecting. It's your brand. It's your address, as I was saying, for all your things. It's a trust anchor. So when people want to go find a company, the first thing they tend to do is search for that company's domain name. So when they're finding it, it's building that level of trust. So it's very important that actually businesses really start to look at your SPFs, your DKIMs, your DMARCs, and then going forwards, we've got things like BIMI, and then also Apple's brought out their branding with the new business. This is all being basically put in place to build trust, to show the world that your brand is who you say you are. But then that raises the question, do you actually, like I was asking, do you actually know who's using your brand out there? As I'm sure all of you know, DNS is a public record. You can quite easily look up everything about a company's, where all their services are going. Now, what I've got up here is McDonald's records. We can see all the services that McDonald's are using. I can see what email services they're using. Now this is starting to give me a picture of, if I was a threat actor, what would I be starting to target? What do I want to start looking at? What is also interesting about them is they don't actually have DMARC in place. And they've not had it ever. Right, a bit of a test. You can either go to that web address, or if you're feeling safe, you can go to the QR code and test your own domain to see what we see, what is it vulnerable, your domain? Have you put in place the right settings for your SPF, your DKIMs, and then ultimately, have you got DMARC in place? Everyone had a chance? Okay. When it comes through, the result, it should give you a ranking, basically 1 to 5. If you've got 3 and below, you need to do something. It basically means that we can spoof you. Anyone can spoof you, and that's just public knowledge that they can look up. Okay? You want to be in this 4, but actually really, these days, with the way the world's going, with all the exploits and the attacks and vulnerabilities, 5 is where you want to be. You want all those things in place that basically bring it up to this 5. So what is this actually showing? So again, this is McDonald's, as I was saying. This is their DNS record. They've got SPF's records in place. They've got DKIMs in, but we don't know if they've got all their DKIMs and all their SPFs in place. They don't have DMARC, which basically means I can basically take any address I want from McDonald's and send an email to anyone in the world, and it will look like it comes from McDonald's. Quite scary. This flaw has been around for a long time. In fact, this has been around since the inception of email. And for those of you who saw my presentation last year, you can even spoof a domain that hasn't been registered. So last year, I basically took a domain, I just looked it up on Fast Hosts or GoDaddy and thought, okay, I'll send myself an email from that domain. It got delivered. And that's all because there's no DMARCs records in place on those. If you want to see how easy it is to do it, this link here will allow you to basically send yourself a spoof domain. So if you want to have a go at that. Okay to proceed. Now what you should get once you do that is you will basically actually receive this email. You will get a fake invoice, just showing you how easy it was to basically send someone anything you want, really. And in this example I've got on the screen, I actually sent myself an email from Ronald McDonald of a nice invoice. I don't think I'm going to pay it. So yeah, when we break it down to McDonald's, you'll see that they've actually got P equals none, that DMARC record there. So I hear a lot of people say, oh, we've got DMARC, we've got P equals none. That's not DMARC. That's just saying that you've got a reporting mechanism back. In a lot of cases, people are just putting in an email address which it will report back to. They're not reading the XML reports that come back. If you've ever received the XML reports that come back from a DMARC record, they're near impossible to understand. You do need to run them through a translator to put them into human value. But also, if you are going to use DMARC, it is advisable to be using a service that is constantly monitoring it, because you will get thousands of reports back daily. For every email that you're sending out, you will get reports back. And to try and understand and ingress all that information is really, really hard. I tried it when I first started this with a client, and in the end I just gave up and went looking for a provider that can actually give me human-readable information. And that's where your sort of DMARC providers are an essential service these days. DMARC as a standard, a lot of people will also set it up and they might go to what we call P equals reject, which is full protection. But they use it more almost as a set it and forget service, which again is not something that you need to constantly be looking at this stuff. Because as a service, it also helps you identify that shadow IT. That's why I asked you the question, do you know every service is sending on your domain? You know, has marketing suddenly spun up a new email campaign system and not told IT? In which case, sorry. Come on. Great. Yeah, in which case, unless you've got constant reporting, you have no idea what is going on. Sorry, good old crash. There we go. Yeah, you have no idea that service was set up. So you as IT have no idea that if you're on P equals reject, that those emails are probably going to be rejected from the hosts or the people that are receiving it. So again, as a service, it's not just about protecting your brand. It's there to basically so that you also know what is using your domains. You know, what services are they? Are they configured properly? Have they got the right DKIMs in place? Have they got the right SPF records? A lot of companies, when I first interact with them, that's the first thing I scan. I will look at their domain name and I will look to see what's set up. Since last year, when I gave my previous talk, it was just around Marks and Spencer's, Jaguar, Land Rover compromises. A lot has changed in a year actually on this. In the UK, we've had the UK Cyber Resilience Bill, which is being introduced. With that, there's a lot more sort of accountability from companies. So they're trying to basically make companies a bit more accountable of, you know, do they know what's going on with their infrastructure? Interestingly, all government agencies used to have their own NCSE mail checker. They've done away with that. They've actually said to all government agencies they have to go to market because their product wasn't able to cope with it. They're focusing on other things. We have DMARC 2 starting to come out. It's just being finalized, apparently. Now, with that, the importance of this one is that some of the tags that if you are going to be doing DMARC, if you are doing DMARC in a DIY standard, are changing. So again, if you are using that method where you're manually processing this sort of thing, you'll have to look at some of the tags that you've associated. Again, this is going back to this. It's not a set it and forget it thing that we should be using. This is what is in place to protect you as a brand. The big thing also is that Microsoft came on board. You know, a lot of the DMARC conversation started because Google, Yahoo, basically announced they were going to block mass mailers. So anyone who was sending, 5,000 emails a day, if they didn't have DMARC in place, they were going to start to sending it as spam. Microsoft held off, but they came in shortly in May and pretty much aligned to it. But also, one of the things that's highlighted about when they came in is that, a lot of companies said, well, we're not mass mailers. We don't send 5,000 emails a day. But then what's happened is that, Microsoft and Google have turned around and said, but if your domain name is used in a spam attack, and that one time they send 5,000 emails, you will permanently be labeled a mass mailer, which means that if you don't have DMARC in place, going forwards, your emails are going to be rejected going forwards. So slowly the industry is tightening up on this sort of thing because the email providers just don't want to process all these junk emails that are coming in. Cloudflare's also come on board. They have said that basically small businesses are using their sort of services. If they don't have SPF or DKIM in place, they're not going to allow it. PCI DCS, so if your credit cards processing within the business, they've also started to tighten up the regulations that are saying that if you don't have DMARC in place, they're going to start to clamp down on it. So slowly the industry is starting to take notice. So what else has happened in the year? One of the big things that we noticed from the Marks and Spencer's breach was that actually threat actors have weaponized spoofing. Basically, Marks and Spencer's was on P equals none when they had their attack. We know now that the attack wasn't done through email spoofing, it was social engineering, but then once they got in, they basically used the fact that Marks and Spencer's didn't have DMARC protection in place to then send out mass emails to all the Marks and Spencer's customers saying, oh, well, we've had this breach, please click this link to reset your password. Or, there were various things. So the threat actors are looking at this. They identify it. So it's, as I say, it's something to really start to, as a business, focus on and pay attention to. Everyone hopefully should have noticed that Apple brought out Apple Business. One of the big features of Apple Business was that you can brand your email. Very similar to a service like BIMI, which allows your logo to basically be presented in mail clients. When you dig through the support documents, Apple has basically said that unless you have DMARC in place, you're not going to have that branding. So again, if you want to utilize that feature, which is very much your marketing departments will want to do, it just helps build that brand, build sort of people's representation of who you are, you're going to have to sort out DMARC. Now, where does this, obviously DMARC is about spoofing, but as I was highlighting with the Marks and Spencer's attacks, the threat actors are also using spoofing to their advantage. Man-in-the-middle attacks, okay? Has anyone ever heard of Evilgenics? Have any of you seen it in operation? Okay, so Evilgenics, fascinating program. It's completely free to download off of GitHub. It basically will bypass MFA. So we've spent all this time setting up MFA, two-factor codes. With this, Basically, once someone has had the exploit processed on them, the threat actors don't even need to worry about your MFA. As I say, it's a man in the middle. So it's being used with spear phishing attacks. So what the threat actors are doing is they are looking for specific people that they can target. They will probably send you an email if your company domain doesn't have DMARC in place, saying, this is IT, we've noticed some irregularities, please reset your password. Click this link. Okay? Now, in the past, we used to always joke because it looked very much, you could spot these things because there was bad spelling, all these sort of things. With AI, a lot of these emails are getting very good. But where EvilGenix is quite scary is that when you click that link, it takes you, say you're using Microsoft, it takes you to a Microsoft login page, and it looks identical to Microsoft's login page. You put in your password, you put in your username, it kind of glitches, which most people will say, oh, that's just Microsoft. But then it logs you into Microsoft, and the user has no idea that there's anything going on in the background. But what EvilGenix is doing in the background is it's capturing your email address, it catches your password, but what's most important is it catches a session cookie. Now then what you can do with that session cookie is the threat actor can basically paste it into their web browser, and they can log straight into your Microsoft tenancy as you, and it doesn't prompt them for the 2FA because you've already done that. So they're inside your tenant. They're inside your email address. Now what they will then do is they will register their own MFA on there, so then they can always get back in if they need to, or they will start to set up forwarding rules. Now I came across this because I actually had a client who had this done to them. And I looked to their tenant and I was like, there's no compromise, I can't see anything. And it wasn't until I started looking at email rules that I found that someone had set up a forwarding rule and they were sitting in the deleted boxes with all the emails that they were sending out. So yeah, really quite crafty, but as I say, paired with the fact that if you don't have DMARC in place, a very easy campaign for them to do. Now that NCSE web address is an actual case that National Cybercrimes have documented where they've identified Russian threat actors doing this to companies. So this isn't a theoretical, this is a live thing that's actually happening and to keep an eye on. This is, as I say, this is what the sort of back end of EvilGenix will show them. What is also scary about this is that it's not just Microsoft. They have Google, they have LinkedIn, they've got a simulation for pretty much most services out there, it seems. So that paired again with that the DNS visibility, they can look at your domain name and say, well, which email service? Oh, it's Google. Spear phishing campaign, we'll send them a Google login saying that they need to they capture the session cookie, they're inside your Google tenancy. Okay, so it's not just protecting your domain, it's looking at what other things can they do with this. So what do we do about this? This is the tricky one. Email spoofing, that is a simpler one. You've got to get your domains, not just domains. So if your brand, your company has multiple domains, .com, .co.uk, all of them, you need to get those to P=reject, okay? There is a lot of DMARC providers out there. They all have different features. I tend to use DMARC as a company. South African brand company, just have you really understand the threat, but also what is very unique about them as a brand or a DMARC provider is they're the only one on the market that guarantee they will get you to P equals reject in 90 days. A lot of these companies will give you the tool and say, off you go. And then what happens is us poor IT have to identify all the different services that are using our email, our domain name. We then have to sort of set up the SPF, set up the DKIM, all these sort of things, which is not hard, but it takes time. Their team is brilliant at helping you. So that is why I've tried most of the services on the market, and that's predominantly why I choose them as my supplier for my customers. But as I say, P equals reject, we've got to start doing it. The quicker we can get domains to this just closes down the loophole that threat actors are actively using. The adversary in the middle attack, this is a bit more of a tricky one. Because actually, when you log it, say if you go into Microsoft's tenancy, unless you can find those rules, or you can see that someone has added an additional MFA provider in there, it is really hard to know that someone's done this. It's that sneaky. You can go into the logs, apparently, and it's a very manual process, but you're looking for basically where you have two sessions which are using the same session cookie logged in. But there doesn't seem to be any automated alerts or anything, particularly with Microsoft, they're telling you this has happened. So it is a really, really hard thing to know this has happened to you as a business, unless suddenly someone says, my email account's been sending out all these emails. I have no idea about this. Okay? One solution I have found is quite a simple solution. Is basically what they're calling MFA 2.0 from a company called IDE. It's a small plugin which you basically install, and it's using passkey technology. Which means that you no longer need to actually use the MFA feature to get in. Your fingerprint scanner on your MacBooks will log you into your Microsoft tenancy. I know in the Windows world you can use Windows Hello, but obviously we're all Mac users predominantly here, so that's not going to be relevant to us. So this is right now the only solution I have found other than manually trawling through constantly users' logs to see if someone has exploited it. This closes down that loophole. The other thing you can use are YubiKeys. Challenge of those, obviously, if someone forgets the YubiKey, loses the YubiKey, it just adds friction. This is so far the simplest solution I found, which gives the easiest option for companies. It's not an expensive add-on either. But it's something, going forwards, I hope Microsoft, I hope Google start to look at this more and give us alerting. But so far, this exploit has been around for about 8 years, and they've done nothing. So this is the only option I can find right now to solve this problem. And that is my 2 cents. Questions?
Well, I was going to say, what if you use passkeys like Microsoft Intra passkey in the secure enclave? Is that still phishable, or the session cookie is still?
As long as there's no way of capturing a session, it will be. But obviously, Yeah, it's. I don't know yet. This is the thing. You know, this is constantly evolving. Hopefully, that will close it down. I read an article that you could use conditional access. So with a whole bunch of rules that if suddenly the conditions say, well, why is this in this different jurisdiction? But again, for it, you know, those require different SKUs within the Microsoft tenancy, which some organizations don't have the money for or don't want to pay for. So it's you know, the cheapest option, to be honest, I've found so far is that Auth-N by ADE without needing to do those. But going forwards, that probably is the best.
Because I think we both had customers that exactly that thing happened. You could see in the log, and I could see that the login was from an IP address somewhere
Miles away from where the other one, yeah.
Everyone were, and I blocked that, and then we switched everyone to passwordless.
Yeah.
And have not had the challenge since. And you would think the same people might continue to use a once successful attack.
I mean, passkeys is, so the Auth-N is using basically passkeys.
Sure.
So the quicker we can start to, you know, get all these services over to passkeys, again, that will, I think, sort of close down this loophole. But there's an awful lot of services out there that don't even offer passkeys and don't even seem to have it on their roadmap even, which is quite scary.
But just to understand, that session cookie could still be stolen.
Yes.
Yeah, so even if you're using passkeys, they could steal the session cookie, but they couldn't set up their own two-factor.
They couldn't set up their own two-factor.
So they could still do the initial break-in,
yeah,
but they couldn't
so
maintain
they would
control.
have your password and your username, but it's the session cookie is what.
Yeah, I guess there is a password somewhere.
Yeah, so they wouldn't. Yeah,
It's there in the back end, but it's never transmitted.
No. So that's why, you know, passkeys would be a good solution if all these services will sort of really start to roll it out. But right now we don't, you know, it's sporadic. Any other questions?
Thanks very much. So I missed the first part of your talk, apologies, but when I came in, you were talking about, you know, setting up DMARC, DKIM, etc., which I did for my own business when I first set up. But then you say I have to revisit it constantly, is it, just to check it up? Because since I set it up, I haven't even looked at it since.
So do you know if someone's using your domain then?
Just myself, I think. I don't know.
No, see that. So if you've got a good DMARC service, you'll be getting alerts that a certain threshold has been reached.
Right.
This domain, these number of emails are failing DMARC.
Oh, okay.
And that will then say to you, well, actually, I know all the services I'm using. I've configured them with the right SPF, DKIM, all these sort of things, so they shouldn't be failing. So then you should be going into the platform and looking at, well, what's using those? And that's when it's in a bigger company is Shadow IT. You know, marketing might have spun up a new instance of an email platform, but it also can be used as a tool if someone is trying to basically attack your company. So it's that early warning system is like, you know, why am I getting all these failings? You know, what's going on? And you can start to then drill down into the IP addresses. And if it suddenly looks like, well, actually they're coming from the Far East or, you know, the Eastern Bloc, okay, are they probing my company? You know, are they looking for other exploits? Generally, I think, you know, if your company is on, say, P equals reject and it looks healthy, most threat actors will probably move on to easier targets, the people who are P equals none. But you can't always rule that out. It just depends on whether you're an interesting company and they really want to have a go at you.
I think so too, but it's just me and my agentic agents, basically.
But as I say, you know, it's that constant revisiting is because if you do take on new services, have you also set up the right SPF and DKIM so that they are passing authentications properly?
Yeah, perhaps I can tick your brain for us for a second.
Yeah, no,
at
do.
some point. Yeah, much appreciated. Thanks very much.
So sorry, that's all we've got time for. The next
Oh.
session is about to start.
Okay, if you've got any questions and you want to know about any of it, do come find me.